Welcome back, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Exit Light. My name is Jackson Tate, and I'm here with my co-hosts Colin Rudis, Zach Ellis, and Zach DeGrowie. Once again, back behind the mics. It's been a couple of tough weeks for Virginia Tech, especially on the basketball side, with the Virginia Tech women's basketball bowing out of the NCAA tournament with a loss at home in Castle against Baylor. But truthfully, the harder news is the loss of Kenny Brooks, the transfer of Georgia Amoore, and it seems to be like they're like a lot of the team is going to be following Kenny to Lexington. Um, it's not been something that's been easy to deal with as a fan. But nonetheless, that's what we're here to talk about. Um, Ellis, I think we were talking about this a lot the other day. But it seemed like a week or a month ago, was one of the best days in program history. It was honestly one of the best days of my life as a sports fan. Being in Blacksburg for college game day, getting out to Castle at 5 in the morning, um, you know, kind of experiencing that whole day, that everything that day was the celebration of the program. And, you kind of blink your eyes and all of a sudden it's not only is the season over, but like it seems like the program is kind of in shambles.
Yeah, it kind of felt like we were on top of the world at that moment. We truly thought we were going to go to a national championship. We thought we had our first chance to win a championship. And now you look at it now, and we're kind of looking at like who's left. And, we kind of had that feeling when the buzzer sounded against Baylor. We kind of just stared at the court and we thought, man, this might be it. Because we knew the rumors about Kenny. We knew he was probably going to leave. And I think a lot of us thought Georgia would go to the draft. And we knew it was Liz's time. It was Kayla's time. Last time we see him on the court. And now you look at it, and our program's being taken away by Kentucky.
I kind of think, and DeGrowie and Colin, you guys can add on to this as you see fit, but it's kind of like you kind of knew this was going to be the end of an era, regardless, right? You knew that Kayla and Liz and Olivia were going to be playing their last games. You knew that there was going to be kind of like the end of a chapter, really, and you're kind of hoping the entire season and like the potential was there. Like we were a really good team. They were gelling together. They were playing really good. And then Liz has her injury against Virginia. And so it goes from you kind of think that this whole chapter can be tied up in a nice perfect Christmas bow, and now we're kind of left with a bunch of questions, right? And that's the most frustrating thing to me as a fan, just because it feels like we just not only did we fall short, it just feels like we fell. It feels like we didn't come anywhere close to what we thought it was going to be. And just even a month ago, we thought that we were going to have a chance to win a national championship, like Ellis said.
Yeah, it sucks because, like you said, going back a month ago, we're sitting outside of Castle at 5 in the morning recording, talking about what the season's going to be, how we're on top of the world, like Ellis said, and we had our talk about the future on that episode. And at that point, it's like the future is still bright. Like you said, it's the end of an era regardless, but we still had hopes for the future. Now it's like Ellis already said as well, who's left. Thankfully Maya she's still committed, but at this point, Clara just put her name in the portal today, and she has the no contact clause, which she's likely to pull players with her, which means that Kentucky is quite literally stealing our program. But it's just frustrating that what the transfer portal and all that stuff has come to, and that one coach leaves and the team follows the coach, and it sucks because we have no idea what to look forward to in the future now.
I think there's a lot to unpack. I think the first off, you kind of got to thank all the girls for everything they did for us this year. It was nothing short of exciting and fun, and everything that we got to witness was amazing, and they gave us their all every time they stepped onto the floor. So, we're always going to appreciate that and everything else to go with it. However, I think that when you look at the situation right after we got out of the ACC tournament, you kind of started reading that Kenny Brooks was rumored to have interviewed with Kentucky, and already it kind of seemed off because he was prepping for the March Madness game. And, it seemed like everybody just knew about it so quick, which, I mean, the players definitely knew about it as well. And I don't think that was fair to them to know that that was going on behind the scenes and everything else with it. But I just think that when you look at kind of what Kenny did and just leaving like almost immediately after the season was over and kind of how we got treated. And what I mean by that is when Kenny first took this job and a few years ago when he came from JMU, his introductory press conference, if you go back and watch it, he spent a good amount of time, thanking JMU for the opportunity, getting his coaching career going, everything that everybody did for him while he was there. And as soon as he got to Kentucky, he kind of just said thank you to Tech, but that was about it, and just started talking immediately about how great Kentucky is and everything else. And it just seemed like we really got the short end of the stick because, yes, he built it, because he was the coach and he recruited everybody to come here and give us such a great time. However, when he kind of left, it seemed like we were not really, acknowledged with everything that we also did to help support him. And I think it's also like kind of how you guys said, once we knew this era was going to have to come to an end, like all eras do. However, when you look at what we had coming in, it was the number 8 recruiting class for this upcoming year. And, Kenny Brooks just kind of leaves that and goes to Kentucky. And yes, he can bring that all with him, but given everything that he kind of said about this place, how special it is to be a Hokie at game day, what this place means to him, what everybody has done for him, I understand the SEC has a lot of money, and especially with how college sports have just gotten out of control today with the portal and NIL, money talks more than ever, but I just don't feel that we deserved to be given such a future potential, especially with like the Strack and maybe even Silva era, a year or two down the line with how great that could be. And now we're not really going to be able to see it. And I understand that, you can build a new program in the SEC and you'll have, they have their own facility and for women's basketball and you'll get more access to money for NIL, and that's great and all, but I just don't feel it was right. I understand that when a new job opens up and with the money that they paid him or they're going to pay him to coach there, you got to do what is best for your family and your future. However, the way that he kind of handled it with not really even acknowledging us much after, I just feel like did not really sit right with me. And I just feel like there was so much here and he kind of just walked away from it. And now that he's kind of taking, what looks to be allegedly Georgia Amoore, maybe Claire Strack and whoever else to Kentucky, I just feel like we really just got sold out for what feels like $500,000 and, you know, whatever else at Kentucky, I am a strong believer that nobody's going to wait outside 12 hours outside of that arena for a game like we did multiple times and gave multiple sellouts during regular season games early in the regular ACC play. So I guess to wrap it up, I just feel like we really got stiffed and it doesn't sit right with me. I thought much higher of Kenny. Obviously, I thank him for all the accomplishments and great things that we got. I know, nobody wants to, or, you don't really want to throw any negative things toward his way, but I just feel that you kind of got to face it how it is that we really did get sold out for, a 30% boost in a paycheck. And, that was about it. And we didn't really get anything of a goodbye. So that's where I'm at on it. Just not happy.
So I've kind of divided it into like two separate trains of thought for me. On the one hand, as a human being, I understand it. Like if you have the opportunities to, like if the four of us at any point got an opportunity to, you know, further our career with all of the resources that you need to be successful, with a paycheck, with you're getting a pay boost, it's no question that you would take it, right? But at the same time, There is nobody at my communications job that's sitting 12 hours in advance waiting for me to go into the building, you know? Like there aren't people sitting outside of my desk cheering me on as I'm typing away on my keyboard and, buying shirts to watch me, like shirts and merch and tickets and all this stuff to support me, right? And so at the same time, it's like, man, I feel like the fan base gets the worst end of this. You really can't. Obviously, there's the resources and the money and the everything that you can accomplish at Kentucky with a SEC program, right? I understand that. I also understand that there's probably stuff behind the scenes that's going on in the athletic department that if we understood, it would probably paint a clear picture, right? But at the same time, we're fans. All we can do as the people that we are is go to games, show up early, be loud, be energetic, and make a difference that way. And that's what we do. That's why we get to Castle at 6 in the morning. That's why we show up, and that's why we paint our faces and buy the shirts that we do and the jerseys, and it's why we're in the front row going crazy. That's what we do. That's all we can do. And I feel like at the end of the day, the fan base is just the one who gets the worst end of this crap because, you know, like I said, there's all these other factors, but we didn't get a thank you, a goodbye. We didn't get anything other than Kenny saying we had a good run at Virginia Tech. I know we had a good run. I was there for all of it. We were there for all of it. I mean, at the end of the day, like we're sitting there at games when there's 1,000 people in the stands. Isaac, who's producing for us, I met him at a women's basketball game with nobody there. It's nuts, and it makes me so angry because I feel like we just deserved better. And I'm not saying deserve better as in him staying, because I understand the situation, but it's like, at least say thank you. There was a time. There was a time when they were so appreciative of us, and I think they were. I genuinely do think they were, but it's like, does that team have the same amount of success without us? Maybe. They're a good team. They were a good team for the past 2-3 years. Do they get the national recognition that they um do they get the national recognition that they have over the past 2 seasons without Castle Guard and Hokie Nation as a whole? I don't think so. And I feel like that's just a absolute sellout, like ZDG said, to not have us, just be mentioned there or even thought about. I think that's frustrating.
I just want to kind of piggyback on that and say one thing. Like, it is frustrating that, you got no goodbye, but then he's going to go to Kentucky and say the same exact thing that he said about Tech, about sleeping giant and all that stuff. You sent a video to us earlier this week about him saying that exact same thing at game day against UNC. And then in his his introduction press conference at Kentucky, he's talking about sleeping giant again. Like, come on, dude.
I think Jackson has a good point that if we had understood, or maybe if we did understand, if something was going on behind the scenes, maybe that picture would be clear. But yes, we have to speculate what we know as a fan. And I just feel that Jackson has a great point that we were there, and yes, Kentucky has the money, but at what point does everybody stop saying, "Oh, we know if you had earned issues, you would do the same thing"? At what point do you stop making it about money and start looking at what we did for him? I mean, at what point do you start putting the question mark on loyalty? Where does he value that, and where can that be valued? Because I mean, now you're going to the SEC where, yeah, I'm not going to speculate on what success he's going to have or what's going to happen. I'm just going to say it how it is right now. You have South Carolina, LSU, Tennessee, who is going to have a new coach, so who knows what's going to happen with that. But you have a lot of competition in the SEC, and not to say the ACC is not hard, but you were going to get another competitor in the ACC of Sanford, who was going that's going to be another great matchup because they're a historically good women's basketball program, and that would sell a lot more tickets. And Castleguard is going to show up if they choose to play Sanford in Castle this upcoming year. And I just feel like the next era that we're going to have, given what the ACC is including with Sanford and all these other teams like Duke, UNC, That's just something that could have been built on and continue to be built on. And I just really do feel that it really just was more about the money than loyalty and appreciation for what we did for Kenny Brooks and the team here. And that's where I'll leave that.
So here's my stance on it. When you look at that Marshall game, you look at that team, and that was pretty much who we thought our future was going to be. Georgia scored, 9 points? Liz didn't play. Kayla didn't score a lot. That was pretty much all freshmen and then the transfers. So we're looking at that team and saying, we got a really good foundation, and we have the number 8 recruiting class coming in. So we are super excited. And then obviously we get the news. And my first thought, I know there's a lot of anger, a lot of frustration. My first thought was thank you. He took a program who historically had 0 success and brought him to the Final Four, won a regular season and a tournament championship in the ACC, and brought a whole community together in Blacksburg to care about women's basketball. And so my first thought is obviously, thank you, Kenny. Look at what you did to this program. And then I start thinking about it these last couple of days. He went and interviewed for a new job right before we play in the tournament. 2 days before our game, the story breaks that he interviewed. Why are you doing that if you're trying to take a program to a championship? Did you give up on the team because Liz was hurt? Is that what it was? I can't fathom that. And I totally understand you got to do what's best for your family. They get more money. You have a ton of money in the recruiting budget. Facilities are so much better. I get that. But you're from Virginia. You're pretty much home. You said, I don't know if you actually said it, but it's basically your dream job. And so I can understand if you want to take a program and build it up to show your legacy, do the same thing you did here at Kentucky. I can understand if you want to do that. But you don't do it by stealing. You talked about this as a family. You said this is home. Virginia Tech community is your family. And now you're going to take Georgia. You're going to take Clara. You're going to take everything you built here and do it over there. That's stealing from family. That's not right. And that's not how you build a program up to build your legacy. That's taking the same thing you had here and doing it at a different school and arguably not as good conference, top to bottom. And you have to talk, Colin, you said the sleeping giant. You're not a sleeping giant if you take the same team that was ranked what were we, 7th at least this year? You take the team that was ranked 7th over there, that's not a sleeping giant. I'm sorry. And I don't know. I'm starting to not like it.
It's kind of funny. I feel like we've kind of been joking around, kind of just trying to make like lighthearted laughter out of the entire situation. But the truth of the matter is we're kind of going through like all 5 stages of grief right now. Um, and it's sports. Like we've talked about this, like, sports are sports, the bad, the good, the drama, the controversy, the laughter and everything that comes with it. It's sports. Sports takes, sports gives. It's just kind of part of the game, right? But at the same time, the only reason we're friends and the only reason that most of the people that I've met at Virginia Tech are friends is because of sports, and a lot of that has come because of basketball in general, and an even larger part of that has come because of the success of the women's team and the relationships and the memories and everything that happens there. It's all intertwined with the last 2-3 years of the women's team being as good as they were, and that's really frustrating at the end of the day because it's kind of turned into a large portion of our lives, right? um and it's feels like we have kind of found our place and found something that we really enjoy, and a group that we really enjoy being together with, and all of a sudden in the blink of an eye you get a 40-minute basketball game and all of a sudden it's over, right? That sucks. um Talk about 5 stages of grief. I at the beginning I was kind of in like my denial phase where I'm like, okay, like I remember um I'm driving up to Blacksburg on Thursday for the game, and the news, I guess the news was breaking that that it was rumored that Kenny may be going to Kentucky. And the first response in our little podcast group chat from Colin was, "Yeah, you shouldn't believe everything that you see on the internet," because none of us wanted to believe that that was possible, right? We all were like, "That there's no shot that's real. There's no shot that's real," because we thought that we had it all. Then you kind of get. I remember getting further through my drive, thinking about it to myself, and I'm like, it feels too um, it feels too like sharp to kind of it feels too sharp to not be real, right? It cut us a little bit too sharp and too deep to for it to us to just dismiss it. So we go to the game on Friday and we're like, okay, well, we're gonna do our best to be the loudest, most passionate crowd that we can absolutely be. We get to Castle at like 8 in the morning on Friday. We show up. We have a group of like, you know, 30 friends plus all the other people that we don't know outside of Castle tailgating. The team drives by. We're chanting Kenny Brooks' name, and we're like, okay, well, maybe we got this. Maybe we got this. And then obviously the weekend progresses. We get to Monday after the tournament, and the notification pops up that Kenny Brooks is leaving for Kentucky. Then it's kind of like, you still have your denial phase. It's not real. You kind of get into a little bit of acceptance, but I feel like a lot of the fan base is kind of in their anger phase right now, where you're starting to realize that like there's more to this than just a career move, like, right? And there's different factors that we're not happy with, and that's fine. We just talked all about it for the past 20 minutes about how we're not happy about it, and the way that it made us feel, and the kind of betrayal of trust and loyalty, and um uh that's tough. But the one thing that kind of resonates with me is that, like, I'm trying not to get caught up in all of the anger, because I'm ticked. I'm mad just because I love the program so much, and I loved building women's basketball in Blacksburg and being a part of that fan base that allowed that to happen. At the same time, I'm trying to be thankful for Kenny, because he gave us 8 years of, when he first showed up here, there were probably 500 people in the stands, and now we're selling out arenas and we're noted as one of the best places to play in the country. Are we going to be able to continue that? I hope so. Are we going to do our best to, be the same fan base that we were prior to Kenny leaving? Absolutely. Um, but at the end of the day, I'm grateful for the opportunity and the ability to have those memories. But actively in that anger phase of not being happy with Coach Brooks for the move. But at the same time, I think Hokie Nation wishes you the best. We're not actively going to root against you unless they come to Castle. But it's kind of like, man, we had it all here, and now what?
Talking about the anger phase, it's like the thing that made me the most mad at first was the fact that he announced it, a day or 2 days after their season ended. So that means it had been done. Like Ellis said, he interviewed between the ACC tournament and the first round of the NCAA tournament. Like, shouldn't you be preparing your team for the NCAA tournament, but instead you're going and interviewing with a completely new school? And that means the talks have been happening way longer than that, if he's already in the interview phase at that point. But then now it's like a very drawn out anger phase, because now you have once every 2 or 3 days, another player enters the portal, and they're all entering with these, no contact clauses. So you know exactly where they're going. So it's like, you're really mad at first because he's leaving, but then the fact that he's taking people with him, that's what just angers you even more and just makes the anger phase just so much more drawn out.
And you can't blame the players here. Like, they signed to play under Kenny and Tech. They're in a terrible position right now of having to choose. Do they stay home or do they go with their coach? So I don't blame them at all. It's so hard watching the players we built relationships with leave to go to a different school. And going back, the one thing that still really gets me is that thank you that we've mentioned a lot. The Boston College men's coach just got hired from Charleston. He got hired after Kenny did, and I think it was yesterday he posted a long, heartfelt message thanking the Charleston fans. And he was there, I think. I said Boston College. Fuck, didn't I? Did I say Boston College? Okay. Let me restart that point. Their old coach went to Boston College, that's why. So the one thing that still really makes me angry is that thank you that we've mentioned a lot. You see, the Charleston coach just took the job at Louisville for men's basketball, and that happened after Kenny did. And he already posted this long, heartfelt message thanking everyone. And I read it. It was an amazing thank you. I just don't understand why he won't do that. I mean, we brought so much energy. We sold out more games for women's than we did for men's basketball. The atmosphere in there was insane. We all loved and supported him. I just don't understand why he won't say anything, why he won't thank us. I don't get it.
And unfortunately, as well, Georgia, as Jackson and you guys mentioned, Ellis did mention that she was going to have the chance this year to go to the WNBA draft, or she will go to a new school for her last year. And obviously, you cannot blame Georgia for entering the transfer portal if she does go to Kentucky, because Kenny Brooks was her mentor. I do not blame her for following him, and she has done so much for this program, as well as Liz, Kayla, and everybody else who was a part of it. So you really can't blame the players or Georgia. And Jackson, I think Georgia did get selected for Australia's Olympic women's team. Is that correct? Did you want to touch on that as
Yeah,
well?
she got selected to be a part of the training camp for the Australia. I believe they call themselves the Opals. But yeah, that's a huge opportunity for her. I kind of want to like not switch, but I transition off to what you were saying. Um, for me personally, um, I didn't come to Virginia Tech with the intention of falling in love with basketball. I knew all about football, and Virginia Tech football was like my childhood. Um, but truthfully, the kind of accidentally buying basketball tickets my freshman year ended up changing my life. To now all of my best friends I get to share basketball with, my sister, and all these people that I would not have met if I didn't have Virginia Tech basketball. With that being said, um, because you fall in love with the sport and like being involved with men's and women's basketball at Virginia Tech, um, I've Georgia was my favorite athlete in any sport, period. And that's not just because she went to our school. I mean, a lot of it is. It's sure she's she plays for our team, our school, but also she's crazy. She's nuts. She's exciting to watch. She was, like there would be times where she'd hit the craziest shot, and even in the last game where you just be like, I don't know how that just happened, And that's Georgia Amoore. That is who she is as an athlete. And she also, and this does not extend to just Georgia, but they're also just the nicest people out there. They loved us, and they made it known that they cared about the students and the fans, and they stayed an hour and a half after games to sign autographs. I got my Georgia jersey that I got from China signed in Raleigh in the tunnels in Reynolds Coliseum, like an hour and a half after the game, because that's how much she loved Hokie Nation. And I'm sad. I don't think I will ever be able to get into that anger phase with Georgia, because I know that this situation is not what she wanted. I don't think she envisioned, playing her fifth year at another school. But you have to do what's best for your professional career at this point. Also, there's no doubt that she's probably going to be making a little bit more money at Kentucky than she would be here at Virginia Tech, just because of how much NIL we have to offer. And I do understand that the rules with international athletes are a little bit different, but we all know that people cheat those rules anyways, right? People get around them. So Georgia has to go and do her thing, and she has to go and be successful. And in order for her to be successful after college, um, she feels that she would be better off getting more instruction from Coach Brooks, and I agree with that because Coach Brooks took Georgia from a an unknown Australian athlete that nobody was recruiting other than like Portland or Sacramento State or something, and turning into an All American. Um, so I can't fault her for that, and I have no anger or ill will or I'm not upset with that. But it's I'm and I talked this to you guys last night about this is when she gets drafted this time next year, they are going to say with the whatever pick, Georgia Amoore, Kentucky, or wherever, Kentucky. And that's heartbreaking to me because she was the program. Her and Liz were the program, and we the reason that we went to the heights that we went to over the past couple seasons, and that's heartbreaking. But at the same time, like I feel like we're losing a hero for Blacksburg. I also feel like the Castle Guard is losing a friend. Um, Georgia and I don't talk often, but she always made it a point to respond when like we talked about like the crazy funny things that happens in games, and we talk about like how us in the front row we're talking crap to different athletes and kind of making fun of Miami's jerseys at the tournament, and Olivia Cochran is the worst trash talker in all of sports, and that was Liz in Georgia for us. That was the relationship for her and the um and the student body basically. um and that's a huge loss because she was everything for Virginia Tech and Virginia Tech basketball. um and so that's gonna suck for a long time. um Speaking on some things that also suck, men's basketball also had a little bit of a tumultuous week. A really tough season after, not really performing to the levels they wanted to perform at this season. Lost in the NIT to Ohio State in Columbus. And then all of a sudden you have the mass exodus from Virginia Tech. Tyler Nickel, Sean Padula, Lynn Kidd. Um, you have Hunter Couture exhausting his eligibility. A legend in his own right. MJ Collins transferring. I can't believe I forgot about MJ's jumper. Um, Man, let's talk about how frustrating this damn transfer portal is. Especially being a Hokie. Um, I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, granted, we just got um the dude from UTSA. That's going to be a big addition for us, and we got Petit back from the portal. But let's talk a little bit of that, like the losses in the transfer portal for Virginia Tech men's basketball.
Yes, Jordan Ivy Curry, that's a huge pickup for the Hokies. I think he will be an instant boost to the lineup that we will have next year. Um, the thing about the portal and everything that kind of happened, one of the ones that stood out to me was Len Kidd. I think that's one that maybe we kind of thought, okay, maybe Len could transfer. However, the way it played out, he transfers and a little about 24 hours, if even 24 hours later, he announces his commitment to Miami. I think Ellis said it best, and I 100% agree with it. There's no way there's no tampering there, right? There's just no way. And I was listening to some other people talk about it. The alleged number that he could be making of maybe, alleged $500,000 or whatever that may be. And I think it's kind of ridiculous that. I mean, I don't want to get on a whole run about NIL as a whole and the portal and all that, but is it really fair that these guys really can just transfer and one day later have such a big bag with NIL? And I think it's a lot different because Jackson, you had mentioned with the international NIL rules, I think, people definitely get around it, but I think how it works is, if Georgia went to Kentucky for say, she'd make a lot of money just off her jersey sales and all that. That'd be a fair statement. And I feel that's really what NIL, when you really think about it, what it boils down to, and obviously what it should be. And when it comes to schools like Virginia Tech, who do not have as much, or as many huge donors like, Duke, UNC, and Miami are fortunate enough to have, all they're doing is it's not name, image, and likeness. It's basically just asking their donors, hey, how much can you really give us to help fund this starting lineup for basketball? And the fact that we lose one of our guys and 24 hours later he has all that is kind of ridiculous, and it really needs to be regulated someday. But I think that's also somebody else had a great point. I think it was our buddy James or something that had said maybe the players got wind of what he could be getting, and that's why they jumped into the portal so quick because they heard they could also make X amount more dollars than what they're making here. And, that's fair. Obviously they want to have a good, future career and all that. But I think that kind of helps us in the fact that I think MJ may return, maybe Tyler Nichols, Sean Padula, as he said in his tweet, he will strongly consider coming back here, if not for what some people believe, Oklahoma. So I think we'll get some people back. I think if we can get MJ and Tyler back, that would be huge. And just hopefully, the stuff with the transfer portal calms down because yes, it allows you to get different players every year and such. But when you talk about Mike Young, what he did with Hunter Couture is a prime example of developing talent and what he likes to do as a coach. And I think that is a correct, fair statement to say that he likes taking his players from a freshman, and by the time that they're a junior or a senior, now they're a team that, while all gelled together for X amount of years, is good to go. Okay, we're going to hit the tournament. We're going to make a good run. We're going to establish ourselves this year. And the way with the portal has allowed people to just exit, leave, exit, leave, exit, leave for coaches like Mike, who like to just, develop these players into a correct system. Unfortunately, it's not working right now because people can just exit and leave. And I know that the average person will just go in the comment section and say, oh, well, coaches can leave all the time. Coaches can go get fend for themselves. Yeah, well, if the team doesn't work out and people start talking too much on social media, they're out of a job. They are not guaranteed another job. So players are given the scholarship and at least job security. So I think the portal should be regulated some, but I mean, it's unfortunate. It kills you and it helps you at the same time. But right now, it's really killing us.
Just to double down on the transfer portal, like it's so frustrating because one singular player could play for, or may I guess technically not play because like they could redshirt a year and then end up being at 5 different schools. Like they could redshirt. Oh, I'm not going to play here. Transfer to a small school. Ball out there. Oh, I'm going to go to an ACC school. Oh, never mind. I want to go Big 12. Oh no, I want to go to the West Coast. Like it's so frustrating that they have there's no like there's no ties to, or there's no, what am I looking for, like there's nothing they have to fulfill to play for one school. Like they can literally play for one school, leave, one school, leave. And I think eventually, getting into the whole NIL thing as well, like I think hopefully what will happen there is that NIL will start kind of, they'll give them a contract and be like, all right, for you to get X amount of money, you have to play 2 to 4 years at this school. Hopefully that happens and that's like a regulation. But as of right now, it's just so annoying that any given player can go play at any given school and then transfer again next year and then the year after. And I just hope they get the regulation to it.
Yeah, going off that point, it's funny. Jackson and I both mentioned Joe Bamisile when you said the play at different schools. He started at Tech and then transferred, I think, George Washington, Oklahoma, and VCU. You can't do that. You can't play at 4 different schools in 4 different years. That's just, at that point, get a job. And so back to us.
Dude, Indeed is calling.
So going back to the portal for us, I'm sitting in class, look at my phone, someone enters the portal. Go to the next class, look at my phone again, someone else is in the portal. And like at this point, I'm like, what's going on? Is Mike Young going to retire? Because you just don't see a mass exodus without a coaching change. Like what's going to happen with our women? You just don't see that happen. And so we're all like speculating what's going on. We're just broke. And I feel so bad for Coach Mike Young. Because Zach, you mentioned it. He takes these no-name players and builds them up. You look at Storm Murphy that he did at Wofford and then to us. You look at Fletcher McGee at Wofford, who broke the all-time three-point record, and Hunter Couture. He takes these players and he builds them. And that's just, it's so unfair to him because he can't do that now. Because he's going to get a guy and then they're going to hear a number and they're going to jump. And it's just so unfair. And I know, Zach, you mentioned someone saw him last week, right when everyone was entering the portal, and he just looked so down. And you feel for him because he's the nicest guy. And he genuinely cares. And for him to go through this, not fair to him.
Yeah, I have a massive bone to pick with the ACC right now because it's really being the it's deteriorating all of our non-revenue sports, and even it's deteriorating our basketball programs as well. And I know that they're becoming more and more revenue bearing, but everything other than football is really taking a downturn here because the ACC is going to collapse. It is going to happen in the next 3 to 4 years, and it's going to happen soon because Florida State or Clemson, one of them is going to win their case, and it's going to be over, and everybody's going to find their way out. And when that's going to happen, the SEC and the Big Ten are going to start open. They're going to start expanding once again, and if Virginia Tech is not on the right side of that realignment, it's over. They might as well just make us an academic institution only because we will never win a national championship. We will never compete. We will never have the money to compete against all of those the big league schools. It's not going to happen. You could say we can go to the Big 12 or a realigned whatever, but it's not going to happen unless you end up in the SEC or the Big 12, Big 10. And in order for that to happen, Virginia Tech has to be good at football. They have to be absolutely outstanding at football this year, and that's this year. With all of the talent they have on both sides of the ball in football right now, and the hype around the program, they have to be good now. And it's not going to happen unless see they're putting every available dollar, cent, everything into football right now. And what that's causing is for Virginia Tech and other ACC schools as well, because you see it happen at other schools. Players are schools are losing their players, their coaches, everything to other schools, to these big money schools, because the ACC will not restructure their revenue. They sold the schools out in the grant of rights, and they've really created this monster for themselves. And then you have idiots like the commissioner of the ACC, who is like, oh yeah, we're fine, and we're going to hold the schools to this. Does he not see what's going on? I don't understand that. And it's the second time I've been screaming on the podcast today, but like we love our sports. We love Virginia Tech. We love football, basketball, baseball, everything. But our huge passion is this basketball. And it's kind of the reason that we're all friends. It's kind of the reason that we've all gotten together. And it pisses me off that we're in this situation because we don't deserve it. We have a fan base that can rival anybody in the entire country. We have, with the right situations, we've shown that we can get to Final Fours and national championships, and we have the ability to do that. But we are actively fighting against ourselves because we are dealing with this stupid ACC crap that's going to end up, screwing our school unless we end up on the right side of the realignment. And that's beyond frustrating as a fan who can't control it, right? As a student who paid money to go to this school, and we're sitting here. Y'all what student tickets just dropped today for you guys, and y'all paid like $65 more this season for season tickets instead, because they need to make money, right? It's ridiculous, and it's what college athletics is now. But yeah, that's basically what we have going on.
And Jackson, I think that we talked about it in one of our first episodes. I think everybody here, I think Rudy especially, touched on it when they said that the ACC was not competitive, especially on the basketball side. And the ACC has had one of, if not the best record in March Madness this year. And NC State, who's an 11 seed, is in the Final Four. And what's unfortunate about that is the commissioner who was there will take credit and point to this to every single school. And I wouldn't be shocked if in that court case he points to it and says, no, money's not an issue. It's just about how you play. Look at what NC State did. They're fine. They made it to the Final Four. You guys can do it as well. And they will use that as a distraction to get it off to that. And it really does suck because, as you said, like, everybody else's hands are tied in like every other sport except football. And I wouldn't even be surprised if Coach Pry's hands are low key tied a little bit because, yes, he's doing an amazing job. I think that this year is going to be very special for them and all the players and all the kids who are going to get a real shot at something special this year. However, I guarantee you, if you brought this argument into that locker room in football, they will say, yes, this is what we actually could be maybe 1 or 2 more years ahead if our hands were not tied with this budget as well. Now, they are, as you said, they definitely are getting more of that money that maybe they couldn't give Kenny Brooks because they have to make sure football is good to get out of this and get on that right side of realignment. But even when you say they're putting everything into football and Pry and all them, they can't max out on everything that they want to do in year 2 or 3 of this rebuild because their hands are definitely tied as well. So they just got to get out of this, man, because what everybody says, oh, Tech is on this downfall or whatever, it will get better if we were able to get into the Big Ten or SEC, and I think everybody would realize that within the first year of us being in there. So it's just frustrating.
Yeah, and going off on that point, you look at these recruits. We have a brother of a dude who, you look at the Edmonds, you look at Vicks, you look at the Fullers. Brothers follow brothers to their schools. And so we have Mansour Delane and then Fahim Delane, 5-star safety. If my brother was going to a school, I would want to follow him there. But you're getting schools like Oregon and Ohio State in the Big Ten, giving him, I've heard, at least $3 million. How are we supposed to compete with that? We just can't. We can't do that. $5 million. You got the top players in the Virginia. We can't keep because we don't have the money. How do we compete? We got to get out of this because we cannot compete with other schools.
Yeah, that's the situation we're in. We're not going to be able to, and it's only going to get worse unless we find a way into, the SEC or the Big Ten. It's only going to get worse. And the frustrating thing is we're there, right? There are some sports that we are not good at, but for a lot of sports, we are there. Like, we're really close. And it's almost like if we only had that little bit extra revenue, that little bit extra money to push us over the edge, I feel like the floodgates would just open for our school. Like, I feel like if that happens, we start winning in so many different sports, but we just can't get over the hump. You have the SEC money that is preventing us uh, from keeping our women's basketball program, and they're taking our men's basketball players, baseball. They have the facilities and everything to be special there. And it's just not going to happen for us unless we get on the right side of this realignment. But talking about a little bit of something that is special right now, our diamond sports, our baseball, softball, really they're really kind of hold down the fort for us in Blacksburg. Softball did have a little bit of a tough weekend against Duke, but let's be real, Duke softball is they are one of the best teams in the entire country, and I would not be surprised to see them in Oklahoma City this year. And truthfully, we were talking about this just before we started recording today. I would not be surprised to see them in strong contention for the national title when it comes down to it. So a tough weekend for softball. And so I feel like we probably don't need to hit on it a whole bunch. We have Isaac was telling us earlier that it's a really favorable schedule for us moving forward. A series against NC State in Raleigh this upcoming weekend, but we get to avoid Florida State. We get to avoid Clemson this season. And we still have series in Blacksburg coming up, a couple games against UVA here and there. But other than that, it's a pretty favorable schedule. So I do think that Virginia Tech softball can maintain their spot at the top of the standings, heading into the ACC tournament and hopefully into regionals and super regionals. But obviously a little bit of a setback against Duke. But kind of what we've said. Anytime we get a frustrating loss, it's something you learn from, something you kind of adjust for next time. They've seen Duke's pitchers now. If we get to meet them again, I'm sure it's not going to be as bad. The games weren't as bad as the final scores were. Truthfully, I feel like we had opportunities a lot in all three games, but it just didn't fall our way. Baseball is kind of what I want to talk about for a little bit here because it was a really fun series to watch against Pittsburgh in Blacksburg this past season or this past weekend. Ellis, ZDG, you guys were in the ballpark all 3 days. Um, give us like your insight. Like what stood out to you, what you're looking forward to, etc.
Ellis, you can go first.
This team is so fun to watch. I mean, you got Friday.
Packed house too.
Oh yeah. So Saturday, that was the best crowd we had all weekend. It was filled. It was loud. We were chirping. Sweet Caroline came on. Pitt didn't like that. And we're embracing the Diamond Sports now. It's going to be packed. It's going to be freezing, but it's going to be packed this weekend for Wake. They are very good. Our mouths are going to be chirping at them. You got this Pitt player last week, their first baseman. I have never seen a cockier player that sucked that much. I mean, that exactly. We got the 9th inning. They're down 2. I think this is Friday. He walked. Good at bat. That's huge. Brings a tying run to the plate. This man throws his bat in the air. He's screaming, "Let's go!" He's getting all hype. I'm like, dude, you had 1 hit on the weekend. You had as many hits as errors. You're not good.
That's not a joke. He had pretty bad errors.
Yeah,
that's not a joke either.
He cost him the game on one of them with a massive error that allowed us to keep the inning running. And so you look at that team as a whole. Pitching is really starting to get it together. I think Parliament struggled in that second game. I missed it. ZDG, you were there.
I think that the win was really coming against Wyatt, and you could kind of see it on the mound, like even with his hands as well. I think the win, because Wyatt, I think, does kind of like to paint the corners a little more when he pitches, and I think the win really kept those, more inside. So I think that's one of the reasons why he let up so many runs in that second, which, was kind of unfortunate. But yeah, you're kind of right on that.
All right, I don't know how much the wind affects a pitch that's coming 90 miles an hour, but
well, it was pretty windy. Is that not a fair statement? You don't think the wind can affect him on the mound? Cut all this.
No. Keep this rolling.
No.
No.
You gotta do throwing 92.
If it was stupid, no.
Don't cut it. Don't cut it.
You gotta do throwing 92. I don't know the reaction time, but it's fast as mess. The wind will keep a ball in the park or let it fly over. It's not gonna affect it that much.
So you don't think that if it wasn't as windy, maybe that doesn't happen?
I don't know. I had class. I got there in the 3rd inning.
Well, I don't know either, bro. So I don't know either, bro. That's why I'm asking.
The small ball. You got a guy, DeMartini, who has 14 home runs, 15 maybe, and he's bunting in the 8th inning with the bases loaded. I mean, that's so fun. You see, he could be selfish. He could say, "No, I'm swinging. I'm winning this game." But he lays down a bunt. And it wasn't just him. I think we had, 4 bunts? They just couldn't field it. I mean, learn PFP. Come on now. And so the multiple ways we can win with this team is starting to show. And it really brings back that team that was ranked 4th and was 1 game away from going to Omaha. Because that team, they would lay down a bunt at any point. And so this team, it's getting me excited. But we are a Hokie, so.
Massive shout out, Pitt. Another team in Blacksburg losing in blue jerseys.
Well, um, looking forward to this weekend. I don't think Wake Forest is going to bring any blue jerseys to Blacksburg, but nonetheless, um, a pretty big series in English Field at English Field for the Hokies. Number 11 Virginia Tech versus number 21 Wake Forest. 3 days of action: Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We get some nighttime baseball for the first time this season. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like Mother Nature is going to help us out and give us a warm night. It looks like it's going to be like 35 degrees out there. Hopefully, the wind gets kind of picked up by the facade there.
Hopefully, the wind doesn't affect the pitching.
Yeah. Hopefully, um, maybe it'll blow hard enough when Wake Forest is pitching to slow their pitches down just a little bit, right, Zach?
That's not what I meant, but okay.
Word. But nonetheless, I think it's going to be a pretty good series. Um, pretty quickly, just talk a little bit about the keys to this series. This was a series that was on our radar from the beginning of the season when they dropped the schedule. Had a little bit of a Lucas moment there. I'm sorry, but Wake Forest was ranked number one there at the beginning of the season. Kind of has struggled recently, but they do get a couple of their pieces back here for this series this upcoming weekend. What does Virginia Tech need to do in order to win this series against Wake Forest this upcoming weekend?
You got to hit and you got to pitch. I mean, you can't look at Wake and say they're not that good just based on the record, because look at the ACC. Again, we might not be strong conference, but I think we have the most teams ranked. Wake has so many good pitchers, and especially Chase Burns. So that Saturday game, we just got to hit the ball. He's going to be throwing 100. He's going to throw a 92-mile-an-hour slider. That's going to be tough. I don't know if Wake is as good at hitting home runs as they were last year, but last year they hit the ball out at any point. 1 through 9, they can hit it out. So if we can pitch well, as long as the wind doesn't affect where the location of the ball goes, I think we'll be okay.
I think personally, I think small ball is once again going to be how the Hokies are going to have to win this game. Wake has a really solid starting pitching group. However, if you can run up their pitchers' counts and just reach into their bullpen a little bit, when you start looking at the ERA at the rest of their bullpen, it's really not that good. I mean, Burns shoves and they're getting their other guy back, but I mean, I think just running up their numbers, reaching into their bullpen is going to how you're going to win this, because they've given up 14 home runs in the last 3 games, and they've given up a lot, and even against other teams, the Wake will get runs, but they've also equally have given up as many, and other games they really have struggled to get on base and bring in those runs.
Yeah, I think it's already been said best by Ellis. Just bat to ball is going to be huge. Putting up runs. Going through Wake's schedule, they're 17-10. They're having what I guess you could say kind of a down year compared to what they were last year, but it seems like in every loss they have, like they have a lot of losses where it's 11-10, it's 12-10. They put up 10 runs, but they lose. And that's DeGrowie touched on that. Their bullpen's struggling this year, but they're still putting up runs. So Tech needs to score, but also if they can get like solid starts each day, and the starters can go hopefully at least 4 or 5, 6 innings, however many, and just play shutdown defense, then I think they'll be solid. But you got to score your runs, and you need the pitching to be solid. You just got to be solid all around.
Yeah, I don't think Wake Forest hits the ball that well. They haven't been great all season, but obviously their bats are there. Like that, everybody's been saying that at some point Wake is going to wake the bats up, right? So I think for Virginia Tech to win this series this weekend, all they really got to do is just to make sure that they can get through 6-7 innings, like Colin said. They need huge outings from Renfro. They need huge outings from Parliament and Griffin Steig on Sunday. And if they can get those, if they can get deep outings for all three of those, where their Tech is leading, tied, or in the game, I think Virginia Tech has a really good shot at it. But kind of, um, a really big point that we've kind of talked about a little bit before is, are we going to be able to knock their starters out of the games? Wake Saturday starter is, he's a rock star. He's going to be really good. He's going to be drafted in a very high round in the MLB draft. If by any chance Virginia Tech can tag him and knock him out of the game early, I think Virginia Tech has a really, really, really good shot of winning the series. ZDG, you were kind of talking about this just a little bit ago. If you can force them into their bullpen, the deeper they go into their bullpen, Virginia Tech is going to rock them because they are not that strong pitching wise. Their bullpen is not that great in the depth. They have really good starters, and I believe their top 4 or 5 guys are really, really strong. But when you get past that, it's rough. They're giving up, a lot of home runs. They're giving up a lot of, they're just giving up a lot. If Virginia Tech, if these games are pitching duels, I think Virginia Tech really has to focus on, kind of like ZDG said also just a little bit ago, utilizing small ball. They need to be able to force the runner. They need to be able to, advance the runners when they have the opportunities to. If you get a guy on with a guy on second with no outs, you need to bunt him over to third base. So he puts him at third base with the opportunity to score. I think that's something that's really going to be big for Virginia Tech this weekend. They're going to have home field advantage. The ballpark's going to be rocking. The students are going to be there. I know we're going to be right behind the plate, talking our crap, getting in the players' heads all weekend. If you guys don't follow Chef's Kitchen, go follow Chef's Kitchen. We're kind of bringing that back for this season, trying to get a little bit more content moving for the rest of the season. But I have full intentions of working with us and getting some content prior to the weekend. That way we can have a little bit of dirt going forward for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Did you say dirt?
I said dirt.
Like
sorry, Lucas.
Dirty ball?
Like dirty ball, but also sorry, Lucas again. Lucas Miller has been shouted out for his stutters 4 times because he didn't know how to talk to Carly Wenzel. But that's okay because not all of us are meant to have conversations with people that are better than us. Nonetheless, Virginia Tech baseball is going to have a really important weekend. Virginia Tech men's basketball is not, like I was about to say. They're kind of down and out. Big weekend for Virginia Tech baseball. Softball has a big weekend against NC State, trying to get back on track. And we're going to be excited to see that. Moving forward, we have spring game coming up. Baseball, softball, really kind of bearing the load of the wagon, moving down here towards the end of the school year, and towards the summer. But basketball season's over, so they're really the main in the spotlight now. So we're going to be looking forward to talking about them moving forward for the rest of the year. A little bit about recruiting, spring game stuff coming up shortly. And then kind of more some fun stuff. Truthfully, like we get to open up our horizons during the summer because not everything has to be about Virginia Tech. And that's going to be exciting just to have some laughs, have some enjoyable content, just have some fun on here with y'all. But nonetheless, thank you guys for tuning in, watching. I say this every time, but at some point we're going to get this thing up on Spotify, Apple Podcast. I'm just trying to find the best way to do it, but we'll do it at some point, I promise you. So if you haven't, follow us on Instagram, follow us on X/Twitter, subscribe to our YouTube. We're close to having those 50 subscribers that we need to be able to do live recordings, which will be fun because we can go to go pretty much anywhere and set up the phone and the microphone and do what we got to do and just have some fun. Nonetheless, we thank you for tuning in and watching, and we will see you next time.